Islam is a monotheistic Abrahamic faith that emerged in the 7th century CE in the Arabian Peninsula. Today, it is followed by over 2 billion people worldwide, making it the second largest religion on earth. Yet despite its scale and historical depth, Islam is often discussed through political headlines or emotional debates rather than through careful philosophical examination. This video approaches Islam differently. Rather than asking what people think Islam is, we ask what Islam understands itself to be. At its core, Islam presents a comprehensive worldview, addressing questions that have occupied human thought for millennia. Who is God? Why do human beings exist? What defines right and wrong? What is justice? And what, if anything, lies beyond death? To understand Islam, then, is not merely to understand a religion, but a way of seeing reality itself. To understand Islam's emergence, we must first understand the world into which it was born. Pre-Islamic Arabia, a period often referred to as Jahiliyyah, or the Age of Ignorance, was largely tribal, with identity shaped by lineage and loyalty rather than centralized authority. It was a society rich in oral culture and poetry, yet religiously fragmented. Most Arabs practiced polytheism, with Mecca serving as a major religious center, housing numerous tribal deities. At the same time, traces of earlier monotheistic traditions linked to Abrahamic belief still existed. Socially, the period was marked by deep inequalities, persistent tribal warfare, economic exploitation, weak protections for the poor, and practices such as female infanticide. It was into this moral and social landscape that Islam emerged. In 570 CE, Muhammad was born into this environment in Mecca. Orphaned at a young age, he grew up known not for power or wealth, but for integrity and trustworthiness, earning the title Al-Amin, the trustworthy. At the age of 40, during a period of solitary reflection in the cave of Hira, Muhammad received the first of what Muslims believe were divine revelations. These revelations, delivered over a period of 23 years, would form the Quran, regarded in Islam not as inspired writing, but the literal word of God, revealed in Arabic. Over time, Muhammad's message challenged polytheism, tribal supremacy, economic injustice, and moral complacency. What followed was not an overnight revolution, but a gradual transformation of belief, ethics, and social order. After Muhammad's death in 332 CE, Islam spread rapidly beyond Arabia, reaching North Africa, the Middle East, parts of Europe, and Asia within a century. This expansion was not merely territorial, it involved the institutionalization of law, theology, ethics, education, and governance. Islam became more than a belief system, it became a civilization, shaping societies through shared moral and intellectual foundations. Importantly, Islam understood itself not as a new religion, but a restoration of the original monotheism associated with Abraham, Moses, and Jesus. At the heart of Islamic theology lies absolute monotheism, known as Tawheed. God, referred to as Allah, is described as one, eternal, independent, and utterly unlike creation. There are no intermediaries, no incarnations, and no divisions within the divine. In Islamic thought, God is not part of the universe depends entirely upon God. As the scholars suggest, God is not part of the universe, rather the universe depends entirely upon God. This theology strictly rejects anthropomorphism. By refusing to imagine the divine in human form, Islamic philosophy avoids projecting human limitations onto the divine. Complementing this is the belief in prophethood, with Muhammad regarded as the final messenger in a long prophetic lineage. Islam teaches that God communicates with humanity through prophets, including Moses and Jesus, with Muhammad regarded as the final prophet. The Quran stands at the center of this revelation. It is structured into 114 chapters, addressing themes such as God and creation, ethics and justice, human accountability, and the afterlife. Revealed orally, the Quran was preserved through memorization and writing, a tradition that continues to this day. Alongside the Quran stands the Hadith, recorded sayings and actions of the Prophet Muhammad, which serve as a practical embodiment of Quranic ethics. Islam also affirms belief in an afterlife, including judgment, heaven, and hell, framing human life as morally consequential rather than random or meaningless.
To maintain this theological structure, Islam translates belief into structured practice through the 5 pillars, which function as both religious obligations and philosophical disciplines. The first is the Shahada, the declaration of faith that establishes one's entry into the tradition. The second is Salat, the 5 daily prayers. Philosophically, Salat is an exercise in dhikr, constant mindfulness. It is a systematic pause in the material world to realign the self with the divine. The third is Zakat, often translated as almsgiving. However, Zakat is more accurately a mandatory wealth tax. It is rooted in an economic philosophy where all wealth belongs to God, and the marginalized possess a legitimate right to a portion of the community's surplus. The fourth is Saum, or fasting during the month of Ramadan. This is the discipline of the will over the body, a spiritual recalibration through self-restraint. Finally, there is the Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca. It serves as the ultimate symbol of human equality. Millions of practitioners, stripped of status and class, wear identical white garments to signify their shared standing before the divine. Moving into the philosophical realm, Islam presents a distinctive view of human nature through the concept of fitra, an innate moral disposition. Humans are understood as born morally aware, naturally inclined toward truth and justice, not inherently sinful. Evil, in this view, is learned, not intrinsic. Islam affirms free will while maintaining that all actions occur within divine knowledge. There is no concept of original sin, only individual moral responsibility. Ethically, morality in Islam is considered objective, grounded in God's nature rather than social convention. Crucially, intention, or niyyah, is as important as outward action. Islam thus seeks to balance divine command with human conscience. The very word Islam means submission, not blind obedience, but conscious alignment with a higher moral order. Islamic philosophers such as Al-Farabi, Ibn Sina, and Al-Ghazali explored the relationship between reason and revelation, while Sufism, the mystical tradition within Islam, emphasized inner purification and spiritual closeness to God. Despite its unified core, Islam contains significant internal diversity. The primary division is between Sunni and Shia Muslims. This split was not initially theological, but political, centered on the question of leadership after the Prophet's death. The Sunnis, the majority, followed the consensus of the community and the leadership of Abu Bakr. The Shia, the party of Ali, believed leadership should remain within the Prophet's immediate family. While this split has influenced centuries of geopolitics, it is vital to note that nearly 90% of their core theology remains identical.
Beyond these branches, cultural variations across the Middle East, Africa, and Asia have enriched the faith with diverse local traditions and expressions. Beyond the structural pillars of theology lies the lived experience of Islamic culture, a rich tapestry where faith manifests in art, architecture, and the rhythms of daily life. Islamic life is punctuated by two major festivals, or Eids. The first, Eid al-Fitr, marks the conclusion of Ramadan. It is a celebratory bookend to a month of introspection, focusing on communal gratitude and the distribution of charity. The second is Eid al-Adha, the festival of sacrifice. It commemorates the narrative of Abraham's devotion, emphasizing the themes of submission and divine mercy. In the realm of aesthetics, Islamic art is defined by a unique philosophical constraint, the avoidance of figurative depictions of God or the prophets. This principle, known as aniconism, redirected the creative impulse toward the infinite. In place of icons, Islamic civilization perfected calligraphy, the visual rendering of the divine word, and intricate geometric patterns. These arabesques symbolize the transcendent and infinite nature of God, where patterns repeat in a mathematically harmonious reflection of cosmic order. On a practical level, the daily life of a practitioner is shaped by the concept of halal, a term often reduced to dietary laws, but which more broadly signifies what is permissible and ethical. This, combined with an emphasis on modesty and adab, or refined etiquette, fosters a culture of deep communal bonding. In Islamic thought, the individual is never truly isolated. They are an integral part of a collective identity that finds its expression in shared meals, shared prayers, and shared responsibility. The intellectual impact of Islam reached its zenith during the Islamic Golden Age. While much of Europe experienced the Dark Ages, the House of Wisdom in Baghdad became a global hub for knowledge. Islamic scholars did not merely preserve the philosophy of the Greeks, they expanded upon it. They pioneered optics, advanced medicine, and invented al-Jabr, or algebra. Thinkers like al-Farabi, Ibn Sina, and al-Ghazali bridged the gap between Aristotelian logic and divine revelation. This period left an indelible mark on science, literature, and art that continues to influence modern society. Today, Islam continues to engage questions of modernity, ethics, identity, and global coexistence, while also confronting misconceptions and political distortions. At its core, Islam calls for submission to a higher moral reality, Allah. It emphasizes balance between the individual and the community, between material life and spiritual purpose, between reason and faith. Islam does not merely ask its followers to believe in God, it asks them to live as if truth, justice, and accountability are the fundamental realities of existence. It is a system that challenges the individual to seek the path to water, the literal meaning of Sharia, guiding the human soul toward ethical clarity. As we conclude this exploration, we invite you to reflect. Which aspect of Islamic philosophy do you find most intriguing? Let us discuss in the comments below. Thank you for watching Pillars of Thought.